She smiled, stuck out her tongue, and whispered a prayer. Moments later, the syringe pushed a clear liquid into her veins, and her heartbeat began to slow. At 9:21 p.m. on January 11, 2001, Wanda Jean Allen was pronounced dead, the first black woman executed in the United States in nearly half a century. But behind that calm smile and final prayer was a story filled with pain, trauma, and unanswered questions. Was she a cold-blooded killer, or a broken soul who never had a chance? Welcome to Death Row Diaries. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe and join the community uncovering the untold stories of justice, tragedy, and redemption. To understand why Wanda Jean Allen's case still divides opinion more than 20 years later, we have to go back to where it all began, in the poorest parts of Oklahoma City. Wanda Jean Allen was born on August 17, 1959, the second of 8 children in a struggling Oklahoma family. Her father left home not long after her youngest sibling was born, and her mother battled alcoholism. The family lived in public housing, surviving on welfare checks that never stretched far enough. From an early age, Wanda's world was one of instability and survival. Teachers described her as quiet but easily distracted. At 12, her life changed forever when she was hit by a truck and knocked unconscious. She survived, but not without consequence. A few years later, around 14 or 15, she was stabbed in the left temple during a neighborhood fight. The injury cut deep, not just physically, but neurologically. Medical testing revealed her IQ was only 69. Doctors discovered that the left hemisphere of her brain was severely impaired, limiting her ability to reason, plan, or control impulses. Experts would later write that Wanda was chronically vulnerable to disorganization under stress, meaning that when emotions ran high, logic disappeared. By 17, she had dropped out of high school. Jobs were hard to find, and she drifted through short-term work and turbulent friendships. Her world was small, her prospects smaller. But that combination of trauma, emotional volatility, and limited comprehension would become the foundation for everything that followed. In 1981, Wanda was 21 years old and living with Deidre Pettis, a childhood friend who had become her romantic partner. Their relationship was complicated, affectionate one moment, explosive the next. On June 29th of that year, neighbors heard shouting inside their apartment. Moments later, a gunshot. Deidre Pettis was found dead from a bullet wound. Wanda told police she had fired in self-defense, claiming she was returning fire after Pettis's boyfriend had shot at her. But forensic evidence painted a different picture. Powder burns and bruises suggested the gun had been fired at point-blank range after a struggle. Police believe she had pistol-whipped Pettis before firing the fatal shot. Despite the contradictions, prosecutors accepted a plea deal. Wanda pled guilty to manslaughter and received a 4-year sentence. She served only 2 years before being released. At the time, few paid attention to the details of the case, but that short prison term and the conviction on her record would resurface 8 years later, as one of the very reasons a jury would choose death over mercy. When Wanda walked out of prison, she told friends she wanted to change, to work, to live quietly. But history has a way of repeating itself, especially for those trapped in cycles of violence and trauma. By 1988, Wanda had found a new partner, 29-year-old Gloria Jean Leathers. The two women met while incarcerated and quickly became inseparable after release. Both had turbulent pasts. Gloria herself had once been accused of killing another woman in Tulsa nearly a decade earlier, a story she allegedly spoke about openly. Friends described the couple as passionate but volatile. Arguments were frequent, sometimes physical, often public. Police were occasionally called to calm disputes that escalated beyond control. On December 2, 1988, a fight broke out in a grocery store. Shoppers watched as Wanda and Gloria argued near the checkout counter. An officer arrived and escorted them back home, hoping to prevent further confrontation. He stood by as Gloria gathered her belongings, preparing to leave. Wanda begged her to stay, promising to work things out. Gloria refused. As she walked toward her car, she picked up a garden rake from the yard and struck Wanda across the face. Moments later, Gloria and her mother drove off toward the Oklahoma City police station to file a complaint. Wanda followed. An emotional decision that would end one life and destroy another.
When Wanda arrived at the police station, she spotted Gloria and her mother in the parking lot. She later claimed her only intention was to plead for reconciliation. But when she saw the rake still in Gloria's hand, panic and anger collided. Wanda returned to her car, retrieved a .38 revolver, and approached. Witnesses said the two exchanged heated words. Then came the shot. A single bullet that struck Gloria Jean Leathers in the abdomen. Inside the station, officers heard the sound but couldn't believe what had happened just outside their doors. When they rushed out, they found Gloria collapsed on the pavement as her mother screamed for help. Wanda was taken into custody without resistance. Gloria was transported to the hospital, where she died 3 days later on December 5, 1988. 2 women had now died at Wanda's hands. The pattern was undeniable, and this time Oklahoma prosecutors had no interest in plea bargains. The state of Oklahoma charged Wanda Jean Allen with first-degree murder and announced it would seek the death penalty. The prosecution portrayed her as manipulative, violent, and remorseless, a woman who had already killed once and learned nothing. Her defense was built around self-defense. Attorneys argued that Gloria had a violent history and had once stabbed another woman to death, claiming Wanda feared her. To support this, they wanted Gloria's mother to testify about what her daughter had told her regarding that old crime, but the court ruled it hearsay and barred the testimony. Without it, the jury heard only the state's narrative, that Wanda was a dangerous, controlling woman who shot her partner in cold blood. The prosecutor described her as a continuing threat to society, emphasizing her prior conviction. The jury agreed. They found her guilty of first-degree murder, and during sentencing accepted 2 aggravating factors: her previous violent felony and the belief that she posed an ongoing danger. What the jury didn't hear was equally important. They never knew her IQ was 69. They never learned about her brain damage or her impaired ability to think clearly under stress. Those facts, buried in old records, would have painted a very different picture. But by then, it was too late. After her conviction, new lawyers took over Wanda's case and began uncovering what her trial attorney had missed. A psychologist's report from her teenage years showed severe cognitive deficits. A doctor had even recommended neurological testing decades earlier, testing that never happened. In 1995, a comprehensive evaluation confirmed significant brain dysfunction, likely caused by her childhood injuries. The findings were clear. Wanda Jean Allen's decision-making capacity, impulse control, and emotional regulation were permanently compromised. Her former trial attorney later admitted in an affidavit that he had never investigated her medical history, never requested expert testimony, and never introduced her intellectual limitations to the jury. In his words, "I did not search for any medical or psychological records or seek expert assistance for use at trial." The new defense team argued that executing someone with such impairments violated evolving standards of decency. But in the 1990s, the legal landscape offered little protection for defendants with intellectual disabilities. When the case reached Governor Frank Keating, even he hesitated. 3 of the 5 members of the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board were his own appointees. He considered granting a stay, but only on narrow procedural grounds. Prosecutors argued Wanda had misled the jury about her education, claiming she graduated high school and obtained a medical assistant certificate. Statements later proven false. That contradiction weighed heavily against her. Ultimately, Keating denied clemency. The execution would move forward. After 12 years on death row, Wanda's time was almost over. During those years, she found religion, telling those around her she had become a born-again Christian. She spent her final months corresponding with ministers, family members, and fellow inmates. Reverend Robin Myers, who served as her spiritual advisor, said later that Wanda's transformation was sincere, but also strategic. She understood how her public image, as a black lesbian convicted of killing another woman, could influence how society viewed her appeals. January 11, 2001. The day began quietly at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester. Outside, protesters gathered, some calling for mercy, others for justice. Inside, Wanda was calm. She met privately with her lawyer, David Presson, who had become her friend over years of appeals. That evening, 24 relatives of the 2 victims, Dedra Pettis and Gloria Leathers, arrived to witness the execution. They were escorted to a small viewing room separated by a tinted window. As guards prepared the IV line, Wanda looked at her attorney and smiled. Presson later said she was dancing on the mattress while they tried to kill her. Her final words echoed through the chamber. "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." Minutes later, she was still. Time of death, 9:21 p.m. Outside the prison, reporters waited for statements. Family members of Gloria Leathers said they finally felt closure. Wanda supporters called it state-sanctioned tragedy.
Wanda Jean Allen's death carried symbolic weight. She was the first black woman executed in the United States since 1954, and the 6th woman executed since the death penalty was reinstated in 1977. Her story reignited discussions about race, gender, sexuality, and mental health in capital punishment. Critics argued that Oklahoma had executed a woman with the mental capacity of a child. Others countered that she was a repeat offender who had taken 2 lives and showed no remorse. A year after her execution, filmmaker Liz Garbus released The Execution of Wanda Jean, a documentary that chronicled her final appeals and final days. The film offered an intimate look at the woman behind the headlines, vulnerable, complex, sometimes manipulative, but undeniably human. The documentary forced audiences to confront uncomfortable questions. Should intellectual disability mitigate guilt? How do race and sexuality influence perception of guilt and mercy? And when the justice system fails to present a complete picture of a defendant's mind, Can an execution ever truly be just? Even today, Wanda's case remains a reference point in debates over mental health and capital punishment. Her story is studied in law schools, discussed by activists, and remembered by those who saw her final moments through that glass window. 2 women dead, 1 executed. 2 families left scarred, each claiming justice, each carrying grief. For some, Wanda Jean Allen was a manipulative killer who destroyed lives and deserved her fate. For others, she was a casualty of poverty, brain injury, and neglect, a woman whose crimes were born from circumstances she could never fully control. Her life forces an uncomfortable reflection. How much responsibility do we bear for the people we fail, long before they commit the acts we condemn? In the end, Wanda Jean Allen's story isn't just about murder or punishment. It's about a cycle of trauma passed down through generations, about the line between justice and mercy, and about a society still deciding where that line should be drawn. What do you think? Was this justice served or justice denied? Share your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more untold stories from Death Row Diaries, where every inmate has a story and every execution leaves a shadow.